Good evening and welcome to Friday's Live with me, Raj Nayak. Thank you very much for watching this live chat. It's been more than 3 months now that I've done this show, and the show goes on. For those of you who joined recently, let me to tell you this show is all about positivity. It's about people from all walks of life and their inspiring journey. My guest today is the Chief Executive Officer of Lodestar UM. She is on the board of FCB. She is one of the most respected and well-known name in the media and advertising industry. She was named one of the most influential women leaders in the advertising industry by the Economic Times. She is a crusader of work-life balance and flexi hours, and an advocate of gender diversity. My guest today is my dear friend, Nandini Dias. Nandini, welcome.
Hi, Raj. Lovely to be on your show.
Thank you, Nandini. Thank you so much. You're also the first person from the agency side of the business, the media agency side of the business, or even the agency side of the business to be coming on this show.
I'm totally touched and overwhelmed. In fact, I realized this as after we spoke and I kept the phone down and I was, wow, everybody, I think everyone who knows you, Raj, thinks of you as their like best friend. So anyone you ask saying, who would you actually go to if there was anything that you wanted to go and ask someone, and they will say Raj. And that the fact in hundreds of people that you know from the ad and media industry that you picked me up, it's made my day. So the rest of the interviews, I'm sure it will go well or not, but this is my high point. So thank you.
For me, it's the challenge has been actually choosing, and I actually drew a lot and said, okay, I'm just going to go without, planning whom I'll call.
Now, no, Raj, no justification. I'm just delighted to be here. So thank you.
Yeah. But having said that, recently you've been on the cover of 3 magazines. So, I think you deserve this. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Nandini, I just mentioned what this show is, and I'm sure you watched some of the episodes before. It's more about getting to know people. It's my way of getting to know people, and also people who know you. In our industry, we spend a lot of time with each other, but we really don't know each other. Even though we've known each other for years, we spent time together, we've gone out, had dinner, had parties, whatever it is, but we really don't get to know the person. And this is my way of getting to know you. And also a lot of people in the industry, they would like to know you, because your journey has been very inspiring, so they would like to know right from your childhood, how did you start and your journey. So if you can just start from where are you from, and we can move from there.
So basic family is from the Vidarbha region, which is Nagpur and Akola. My father was from Nagpur. My mom was from Akola. Zamindar, we were landowners, agri money, that is. And so it's interesting. My father, after while he was from the Zamindar family and did agriculture, didn't want to, be part of that life, wanted to branch out, wanted to study. So very quickly came out, had the usual stories of, trouble, jumping into trains and coming away without money, staying in somebody else's balcony, those kind of things. But he graduated and postgraduate in mathematics, moved from there, gave his civil ICS exams, was part of the bureaucracy, actually retired as a really senior bureaucrat from Delhi. Really interesting. I mean, because you want to know a little more about the family, I think a very dimensionalized man, and for example, he knew 3, 4 languages: Hindi, Marathi, Sanskrit, English, equally fluently, could read, write in them. Was into sports, music, astrology. He uses mathematics to learn astrology, philosophy, yoga. So big, he knew Rajneesh, J. Krishnamurti, UJ Krishnamurti as people. I mean, Rajneesh and he grew up together in Jabalpur. So really dimensionalized man, and very open and modern kind of person. And fortunately, he had met my mom when she was 5 and he was 10. They had agreed to get married then. When she became an orphan at 18, they got married. My mom is an equally well-educated woman. She studied MPhil in 2 languages, was a prof, taught, very strong woman with a point of view. It's a high sense of right and wrong was, very. I have no family background which says, rags to riches. It's a really good, well-educated family and liberal family.
So, what was your father's name?
My father's name was Ramchandra Vithalrao Bansod. And in fact, interestingly, you may not know, he did a lot of interesting audit reports. So one of it was Bofor's report. So in the Bofor's report, which got finally tabled in the parliament, if you see the signature, it's of my father. And it's really interesting. So that's, yeah.
You said something very interesting. I mean, besides being a bureaucrat and things like that, you mentioned Rajneesh, you mentioned UG Krishnamurti. I mean, so a lot of, in a way, did does that have any influence on you? Have you also followed them or read their work and things like that?
So we heard a lot of them, yeah, in our childhood, and actually Rajneesh and all I've met several times. While before he went to the US, our parents were friends. I mean, he and my father was friends. On December 12th, which is his birthday, usually we would land up meeting him. Rajneesh had a large family, like my father had a large family. Rajneesh had a large, so we were in touch. But so I have now started reading a bit more, not the same way that he does. I've not yet started going to an so I'm not going, but I've read a bit, quite a bit. I've read quite a bit.
And your mother, she was a professor, you said.
Yes. So, 18, she became an orphan, Raj, and because they knew each other, they decided to get married. And I think because of her circumstance of she became a really strong woman. She just knew what she wanted. She was no pushover, and yeah, really. I mean, I remember many incidences of her showing grit and gumption in those days. I mean, today, 30 years later, if I do the same thing, it's viewed totally different from what she did.
So your parents were based in Delhi.
So
Am I right?
finally, no, actually, we all stayed in Bombay. My father was in a transferable job, and he did very many of these very high profile, projects, so to speak. So because of the whole Bofors report that he was auditing and looking at, it was at that point of time it was very controversial. So he was in Delhi and he was under all kinds of security, but we were in Bombay. So I've always stayed in Bombay, and he kept moving. So in fact, in the middle, when before the Bofors thing in Ahmedabad and Gujarat, there used to be a lot of riots, and so he was sent to Gujarat to manage some part of those riots. So he used to be in Rajkot. So for many 5-6 years he was in Rajkot. So he kept moving, but we were anchored in Bombay.
So where were you born?
I was born in Nagpur. I mean, you go back to your parents' house. So I was born in Nagpur, but we all came back. So we have 5 siblings, and we were all. We all went back to my mom's. In a way, her hometown was. We lived with the grandparents was father's grandparents rather than mother's. But we all. I mean, after that, we've always been Bombay. I stayed in Juhu. I was close to the beach, so I
Oh,
stayed
near
in
my
Juhu.
house.
Yes.
So, so where did you study, Nandini? Where did you do your schooling?
So we did our schooling at St. Teresa School, which is in Santa Cruz, and girls' school. Great fun. You know, uh, so all the 10 years were in that school. We all three sisters, in fact, studied in the same school, and my two brothers studied in Sacred Heart, which was, a stone throw away from the school. So five of us to be shipped out together, and all of us would go back together.
So five siblings, two sisters,
Three
three
sisters.
sisters.
We had three sisters,
Okay,
two brothers.
okay.
So
In
my
my
mother used to,
yeah,
Raj, my mother used to call us Pandavas. So, and I'm the youngest of the Pandav. So
yeah.
I'm Sahadev.
In fact, we are also five. We are three, but three brothers and two sisters. It was.
Okay. That's interesting.
So tell me about your sisters and brothers. What are they doing?
So, my elder brother used to be in finance and HR. Unfortunately, Raj passed away a couple of years back, and which is where after which I started the whole work to live to work. But so he was all of 56, and so interesting is, but five of us are all in 6.5 years time. So we are really close, and we work just 1 year, 1.5 year apart from each other. The second sister is in the US. She's in IT, and she's been there ever since she got married. My third brother is in the is into industrial perfumes. My sister, the fourth sister is, or the second sister, but fourth sibling is in customs, and me fifth. So we are five of us, but interesting is just to have five kids, and I'm sure you will identify with that. Just the closeness of age and us being together. Oh, it was, I think, the best thing, that my gift that my parents could give us.
And what were you? You were the eldest, youngest. Where
I'm
were
the
you?
youngest. I'm the youngest. So I'm the Sahadev of the family. Like she used to call us Panda, which I was the Sahadev of the family. I was the youngest, bratish, had to fight my way through to get to be heard. But yeah, so lovely five of us. And we were such a gang, I tell you. Just things that we put together, we didn't need other people. And all five of us, because we were so close in age, normally if even there are five children, they are so apart that the eldest and the youngest usually are not. But we were like five of us in 6 years. So we really moved together, we played together, we were really thick as thieves together.
I'm the youngest in my family, so I know what it is to be the
Oh,
youngest.
really? That's a lovely coincidence. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So Nandini, after that, what did you do? Why?
So, yeah, so after I finished schooling, I did science. At that point of time, if you get the right grades, you'll end up in science. So I landed up science. But in all honesty, I think I answered my exams to try getting the first class that you had to get to, pass through your parents' approvals. But I actually just played badminton. So whole childhood, I mean, the overpowering images that I have, Raj, is one is of five of us together, two is of sports, and just lots and lots of playing. I'm trained to play in lots of games. So I started with table tennis. I played badminton. I've been trained in basketball. I played soccer. So I played a lot of games. At home, we used to, seven of us, family, at any point, two kids, some friends in the family. So our house used to be full of, and we used to be playing games. So sports was the second part of this. And in college, I continued playing. In fact, I was a scholarship student in college because of the awards and things that I had won. I used to be one. Is to win the college or the in university and open tournaments. And so I played quite a bit of badminton. So the game that I continued was badminton. But so completed science as a science graduate and actually a badminton graduate.
So how come there was no? Uh, how come no influence to get into the bureaucracy or be a professor? I mean, how did you chart a different course? And where did the sports come from? And what was the inspiration there?
So both my parents were into sports.
Okay.
and they didn't play as much as I did, but they both played. So my father played TT, which is how I started in table tennis, and my mom used to play kho. At that point of time, kho was actually a sports which is a competitive sports. So she would play kho. So both of them. So I think there were sports in the family. All of us were into some kind of game. So besides this, I was in athletics, long jump, high jump. So because I was into athletics, I tried all of it. So that's the genesis of it, and I think I just liked it, so it just continued. I kept getting better and better. So once you win and you do well, it works even better. So I continued.
Yeah, I didn't know this. I knew you were a badminton player, but I didn't know that you were so good and that you participated in some of the biggest tournaments and you won many of them.
Many I don't know, but I won.
So tell me, Nandini, how did you decide to get into media or advertising?
That's an interesting story, and it's strange. You know how sometimes destiny works in strange ways. So, like I was told it, like my father was posted in Rajkot, and we'd keep going there. He used to stay in these 24 rooms, houses, Haveli. So, at the drop of a hat, we used to run away to Rajkot. And because, in those days, just two of us, me and my sister, were going to go to Rajkot, and we decided we were going to go by train. So, my father had booked a coupe for us so that, and he had warned us really that you should not open the door to anybody once you're in ensure. So my uh, mom dropped us to the train, and she said, food is there now, don't open it to anyone except the TC. You open that little window, give your ticket, that's it. So all that we listened to, agreed. The train started at 9 o'clock, 9 to 12, nothing happened. 12 o'clock in the night, when tuck tuck happens on the door. So we like really scared now, because this is all the warning that your parents had given. So we open it and say, what? So the TC says, there is this lady who's here. She's a journalist, and she had to go today to Rajkot because of something that was happening. One of these riots was happening in Rajkot, and she doesn't have a ticket. You take her inside. So first we said no. We said no, we are not allowed to. This my parents said no, all that. So, and we shut it. Then a second knock happens. So again we open. So this lady is in the front. We don't know who she's about 30, 35 years old. And she says, listen, I'm a journalist. I'm the editor of a magazine called Abhiyan. This is the thing that is happening. I had to jump in because of this. And please, and she looked like normal, somebody who you could trust. She spoke well. So me and my sister look at this, so they're okay, we won't tell our parents, let's not do it. And we open the door, let her in. Then we had the most interesting night, Raj. So that night, she comes in, we share a little, have you eaten anything? So we share some of the food that we have, and we chat. And we chatted full night. And she told us all sorts of stories. Within that, she said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to do advertising. And she says, do you know anything? I say, I know nothing about advertising except the little things that I've been seeing, hearing, reading, whatever. But I know after this, I want. So when she left and she got off, and we left, we at Rajkot, there was, because my father was a fairly senior post, there was a whole lot of people who had come to pick us up. And she had to. So we actually pretended that we didn't know each other. She went in one direction. Two of us got picked up and taken in the, one of those cars which had, the signal at the top. And so we go. So after that, I had forgotten I had said all this to her. Then I graduate. And this was maybe a year after. And I said, damn, now what? Because, BSc graduation means nothing. I mean, what do you do next? So I decided to call her on a whim and say, Sheila, you had said, and I had not even got my result. So she said, Nandini, most welcome. Thankfully, she remembered. And that's how I got into advertising. So I worked for the first few months in a magazine called Abhiyan. And then as soon as I joined, she directed me to XIC, which was one of these, which was at that time the only course that was there in advertising and marketing. It was not something which was anybody studied or did anything. Before that, only literature students and theatre people came into advertising. It wasn't like, you would study advertising and marketing. And that's how I got in.
So what did you do in the magazine when you first started working there? What was your job?
So now in retrospect, I understand. So, when I went there not knowing what is to be done, but I understood what was pagination and I understood what basic advertising is and editorial and what are the kind of people. So I think in 2 3 months time I understood how a magazine runs, and it was a small unit. Magazines are not a very large unit. We must have been what, 20 people from editor to everyone. It was a small
Yeah.
unit, so very quickly you get to understand what, and no, and everyone does everything after a while, right? It isn't like you have well defined jobs. So I knew what pagination was, and I knew what calling up and what sales and advertising was. I knew, I started reading Gujarati. Normally, before that I didn't know Gujarati. I started reading Gujarati well, and I can read Gujarati now. I mean, not as well as I could, but yeah, so I was doing everything. And the person who owned it, there was a person called Ketan Sangvi. Ketan and I are the best of friends even now. So yeah, that was a good beginning. And Sheila Bhatt was great. It was just one of those things that happen in life.
Yeah, small world. I mean, sometimes your whole career it pans out in the way that you never thought it would. But what was that interest? Why did you say you wanted to do advertising?
So I think I've always been a bit of a non-conformist. I've wanted to do things differently. Um, and this seemed like one of the options. Television had just about started that time, and I could see things on television which this advertising sounded like fun. You read, impressions through with the various things that I read, and I would read a lot. I mean, I was a voracious reader. The siblings, five of us, were really big time into reading, and I have horror stories of the way we would tear books, and so that all five of us would sit in a circle and then literally tear books so that each of us are reading one part and say, Haja, you finish quickly, how long you're taking to read, that kind of conversation. So within all that reading, I think I just it sparked interest.
So, from the magazine, you joined ad agency.
Yeah. So from that magazine, then I did an XIC, which was, and then I started realizing a bit of what was, what's the other side of the picture, what is media planning, what is it that, so various aspects of advertising. And because of my science background, I think because my father knew mathematics, I was pretty good at doing maths. Somehow I thought media planning was the best fit. I started, understanding what, inciting of people habits, media reading, watching. The NRS that we used to have, which was ancient now, and it sounds really old. But yeah, so when we in XIC, when I started reading and seeing that, I thought that this seemed like a right fit. And over the years, I think many people have tried telling me to do, like, so when we got in, media wasn't as happening as it is today. And so at that point of time, servicing was supposed to be far larger, the client servicing. And somebody said, you're fit to do that. And I said, no, I like this. And I've been in media planning ever since.
Yeah, because those days it was a full service agency, and media was a part of the whole agency. It wasn't a separate entity like it is today.
Yeah,
But
so in
yeah, please continue.
Yeah, so in the old days, you landed up being you seeing all the parts of creation, because it wasn't as complicated as it is today. So yeah, when I joined an agency called Interpub, which is owned by Mrs. Wadia, Nargis Wadia.
Oh my!
Again, continue.
I must tell you something. Must interrupt you because I can't help it. Uh,
Yes.
was your office in Orient House, Mangalore Street,
Yes.
in Ballad Estate?
Yes.
Oh my God! I started my career from there. I started my career from Tata Economic Consultancy, which was on the ground floor,
Oh,
and
really?
Interpub was on the top floor.
I think this conversation is full paisa vasool. I
Oh my!
realize I've now
Oh
understood
my
five
God!
kids, both of us youngest, and same place starting. Amazing.
So this is what I say. Now you know each other for years and you really don't know each other, and this proves that.
Yeah. So Interpop was great fun, and Mrs. Wadia was a great leader, and the innovation part of advertising, that you can do things differently. You can drive a trend. You can change the course. These are the little things that you started figuring out at that point of time, and I think that reinforced my belief that I've landed in the right place. So yeah, Interpop was a good.
Yeah, she was an extremely dynamic lady, very, very dynamic. And I've had the pleasure of interacting with her many times. And those days when we started, I used to be part of a magazine from the Tata Economic Consultancy, which was the quarterly survey of industries and the economic scene. And one of
Ah,
my client visits, because I had to tick X number of client visits, just go up the stairs and come down and said, we've been to Interpub. It was,
yeah,
but were you in media at that time? Which year was
I was
this?
in. No, I was in media. So in fact, it's funny. The first understanding of media and duplication and formulas and Quirrell and all that, I had to go to my father to learn, because Mrs. Wadia was an art student, and I think it just the math part of it, needed somebody, and they were all really small offices, so there wasn't somebody else who could teach you too much. So I used to go running to my father and say, okay, can you tell me how this has to be done? Because he was a math student and he was really good at it, he would teach me. So the first part of it, strangely, though he had nothing to do with advertising and media, just the mathematics part of it, I understood from him.
So how have you seen media evolve since then? How has it changed? What has changed from there to today?
Oh, there's no connection, Raj, of the two eras, so to speak. I mean, you were a small part of the entire we in at that point of time, and it was almost insignificant, because deployment of money was a very small part of the whole activity. It was a very madman, era. It was driven by creative people. It was driven by uh, uh, you know, English literature, Alec Padamsis of the world. So it was a different time. And Mrs. Wadia herself was an art student. She had great flourish, and that made the big difference. I think now it has gone 180 degrees away. It is so much about personalization. It is so much about one-to-one. It is so much about technology, analytics. What it's about you, and what do you like, your interests, your intent, your likes, behavior, and the whole analysis and analytics is around this. So it's a sea change. I don't think there is anything which is similar. And in fact, the people who, I'm one of the rare person, I think, who's managed the 25, 30 years of various transitions that has happened. Otherwise, every earlier, once in 10 years there used to be a sea change, and then you would find a certain set of people disappeared. Now that sea change happens in 2 years, and you see people change. So but from there to here, there is absolute no connection.
Yeah, for those of people who don't really understand what a media agency does, can you just elaborate a bit?
Okay, so simplistically, I think brands have budgets to let people know that they are available. Okay. And so, like a Coke may have, let's say 100 crores budget, or Mahindra will have, 200. So each brand has budget, and there is a reason and how you have budget. That budget needs to let people, it is used to let people know that this brand is available. What we do as media professionals and strategists is to study the habits of people, and which is the communication habits. And communication habits are in detail. So, for example, we know on television. And Raj, you've been part of it, and every program, how much it is watched, is it going up, is it going down, what everybody knows as TRPs. So we study, and there may be almost a lack of programs because there are over 800 channels. So the study of who's watching what, or there are about 50,000 newspapers, and so each one catering to different towns, cities, national, regional. And so you study the newspapers or radio channels, or digital now, social search. So you Facebook, so social, I mean Facebook and Google. So all kinds of media that you interact with, at the back end we study it to ensure that we put in money to the right people, so that you see our brand and feel like buying us. I think that's the simplest explanation I could think of. So
Yeah,
that's what we do.
yeah, you articulated very well. Uh, since you've been part of this journey for how many years now? So
About 29.
so after Interpub, where did you go?
So after Interpub, I joined Lintas, and
Okay.
I was in Lintas for about 5 years. So
Okay.
Interpub, I was there barely a year, year and a half, and that's where I met Ignello, and which is my husband, who's my husband. Ignello's my husband, and from there I joined Lintas, and it used to be called Lintas then. Now it's called Low, or the media. This is called Initiative. So that's a different. Now names to the agencies. So I was there about 5 years, and after that I joined Ulka or FCB or Lodestar. Again, names keep changing. But in my current job, so in my current job, I've finished about 25 years now.
So almost 25, 30 years experience in
30
the
years
media.
experience. Yeah, yeah.
So I have a question for you. So now that you explain what you actually do in terms of studying all the media, and then deciding to put your clients' money there, what is the change you've seen? What's the, because there's been a lot, the evolution. There's so many media that has come together, and of late there's a lot of controversy on certain medias as well. So I just want to understand from you, what is that change that you see?
So a couple of habits change that you can see is, one is the sheer availability. So when let's say 25 years back, you had really few channels, and so a lot of people watch those few channels, and even now everyone remembers the Chitrahars and the movies, and the limited programs that you had, and the kind of viewership. And it was a very dedicated, you'd leave all your things, you'd finish your cooking, you'd sit in front of the TV, watch the TV, full attention. Today, the change is dramatic, because there are 800 channels, and there is a video on on everywhere you look, so to speak. So you have TVs in the house, and your phone, you can see videos. So the amount of content that is coming to you is dramatically changed, and so your attention span has reduced considerably. So I think this is one big. So how to keep somebody's attention, with the kind of complexity that is there, is a big ask and a big change. And let's look at each of our own habits, right? So at no point when you're watching television these days, you don't have your phone next to you, or somebody pings you, and then you go to your WhatsApp and see what else is happening. So stuff like that. And the tools and techniques have also come which can map both. So now I can actually map saying, oh, you're watching television. Along with television, at this point of time, were you looking at the TV or you are not? So they can manage to see, and were you focused, not focused? So the tools and technique, because the technology has changed. So that's one big part of the evolution that has happened. The second, I would, is the focus of clients in the whole marketing activity that happens. So earlier there was so much emphasis on creativity and far less on media. Now it's gone the other way around. So the assumption is you know what I when I say to you, the right time and the right place is very, very critical before what is it that I say to you, because the assumption is what I say to you is never going to be unidimensional. So we should do a lot of brand work and say what's the brand prism and what should it be like. Now, because of the social media that is available, Facebook, Google, it's not a one way conversation. Otherwise, advertising used to be a one way conversation. You decided what the brand stood for, and you told the world what the brand stood for, and they used to see the brand like that. Now, that's not the way brands get seen. So, brands keep changing, evolving, people see them, and they keep putting stuff. So, for example, if you go to even a, you want to check out a hotel, it's never just what the rate is. You will see reviews of everything. You will, or if you want to buy a car, you will see reviews of the car. You will see comparison. So the whole method, so what we call a purchase cycle, a purchase cycle is no longer linear. It's very complicated, and you will find out from 10 things before you make a decision. So I think those are the big things that we study to come to conclusions on, how to invest the money.
Uh, so, since you are the guardian of the advertiser's money and every brand has a purpose, how much emphasis do you lay on the medium? Because right now there's a lot of news about fake news, bots, and hate news and things like that. How much emphasis do you lay while you're putting money, because it's TRPs on one end, and on
Yeah,
the other end you have to also protect the brand's image?
yeah.
Okay, I mean, is that something that comes under consideration at all, or it just doesn't matter? It's just the TRPs and numbers. Who cares who's watching it?
So there's a lot of contextual advertising that we discuss, and also what our ads can come against. So there's a lot of work that gets done there. So you will not let, and every brand, it's a very stated policy of what context, next to what kind of editorial, or next to what kind of context can your ads be shown. And it's a very stated policy. So there are a lot of things which you will not let your ads come, and it is monitored at every level. So fake news is very difficult to understand, Raj. So how do but if there is any way that we would know it's fake news, we would not let it come. But other than that, if there is content which has abuse, which is something that you don't want your kids to see, uh, there are guardrails and guidelines where you will not let your brand come, and these are for every brand. So I can't control the editorial that gets put into social media, but definitely when the ad gets served on what kind of editorial is 100% under our control, so it doesn't inadvertently happen, and nobody will let it come through.
Now, contextual advertising can happen in digital media and things like that. What happens to channels? I mean, there are channels, and then what happens?
Yeah. So
I know it's a tricky question.
no, it's not.
The idea is,
I mean,
what I just want to understand, because, yeah.
yeah. So different clients will have a different take, and there are a lot of clients who have a point of view on, if any channel is politically biased or not, because that's the thing that is what we are referring to as a conversation in
No, no,
terms of storylines, and
no, I'm not referring to political. Every channel has its own political alignment.
yeah,
It's nothing to do with politics. But sometimes you see channels, especially now, you see a lot of news channels. I think the quality of journalism, if I would,
yeah,
let's say, has really no longer is what it used to be, the journalism that we grew up with or what we've seen.
yeah. So in all honesty, sometimes it's all about TRPs. So we want, clients want the channels with the highest TRPs, and they couldn't be, so they are not very, very particular on, oh, I don't like X anchor, or I don't like, his political take or the way he conducts his news. So I don't. There are many clients who don't insist on any such point of view. There are clients who say, this part of it, because I don't personally agree, I don't want to be in. But in that, it's not usually a stated policy. It's like it's not on television channel, because the content is controlled by the government, and there are definite policies on the way. What is it that you can show, what you cannot. It's a lot regulated in the first place. The only thing that these days is not regulated are news channels, because all other, I mean, a Star and a Z and a Sony and
No, there's no
regional
problem.
channels, all that is very regulated. It has to pass through certain, it has a certain guardrails or guidelines.
No, my
But
thing was,
news channels are the only one.
I was referring to news channels, and I was referring to. It's okay. I can understand the clients wanting, but as a policy, I mean, do media agencies put a filter to tell the client this is what it can impact your brand's image, or no? It's not. You don't think that's not part of your mandate?
No, that I mean, if we feel that's the way it will be, I mean, and without taking channels, then at
Yeah,
some
of course, of
point,
course.
some channels used to predominantly have, let's say, lingerie ads, yeah, and a lot of lingerie ads used to be on the channel, or they used to be, jadi buti Ayurveda kind of ads on the channel. And we would say that, it's great ratings, but I think that contextually it just doesn't make sense, because that's not the way it is. We do give premium money, so to speak, on channels which completely suit the brand's image and its profile. So that kind of media planning happens all the time. This is only if there is political skew. I don't think that part of it is a media agency's recommendation, or yes or no, either way. Unless a client has a very strong point of view, then it's TRPs to us. If it's a
Fair
politically, skewed
enough.
channel, we will not.
No, yeah, I'm switching gears now. So you mentioned Agnello, and for all of those who don't know, Agnello Dias is one of India's best creative minds in the advertising business. So Nandini, tell me, how did you meet Agnello? You mentioned Interpub, I think you mentioned, right?
Yes.
So tell me about your romance.
So, yeah, nice. So, yeah, I've been married to Ignello now for 26, 27 years. And we met in Interpub. I think just two of us were very similar, I think, we used to be in sports, we used to be in reading, we used to be fooling, playing, naughty, do things which were funny.
Yeah,
Uh,
Agnello is a very,
yeah,
at least comes across as a very quiet person, doesn't come across as fooling,
unless
naughty.
until unless you know him. Oh, I mean, Igdalo and I have done mad things together. Challenged each other to doing silly things, sleeping on the road, walking like a lame person, doing all sorts of rubbish things. So I think the first part, which is we became friends by just fooling and uh, liking each other's company. And I think at some point we realized that it is beyond just friends, and we would like to be or we got more involved than we started off with. And so it's a strange story. Raj, after uh, I got at the same time when I was in Interpub, I got into Bajaj, and so I answered an exam and got through. So it was time that I had to take a decision whether I should go. But me and Ignano had just started, you know, talking and pretending that we are yet going out as friends, but you knew that only two of us landed up in some place, that kind of thing. And I didn't want to go to Bajaj because I knew that, this wouldn't progress if, because it was too much at the beginning. And I think then I shifted off to once we realized that we were seriously into each other, so to speak. So then I moved to Lintas because I thought it was a bad idea, at that point to work together. And then we missed each other. Then he also joined Lintas. And then we got married while we were in Lintas. And we were the first couple. So in this, then I said, "Oh my God, now Lintas, doesn't allow a couple to work together." So I walked up to Prem Mehta and told Prem Mehta that this is the situation. So he says, "Who said no?" I think by then both of us had, started being recognized as good
Professionals.
workers, so to speak, yeah, as professionals. So we were the first couple that they allowed to be together in the same agency.
So you had a huge advertising party with the whole of Lintas there, and
No, so no, so I mean, I had no desire to have a large wedding, and my first four siblings have all got married to the right Maharashtrian, to the right, arranged marriage, all of it done in the normal Indian way things happen, and I had no desire to do any of it. So I was very clear that I didn't want to go and do peri pranam, so to speak, to every person who walks in the wedding. So two of us decided that we would have just friends, which are friends which would be there even after 25 years, guys. So friends and immediate family. So we had such a blast. I had the best wedding I can ever think of. It was the happiest. We were all laughing, fooling. We were dancing. I'm very fond of dancing. So, we were all dancing. So it was a mortal wedding that we could have had. And the good part of it, because all good parents, Indian parents, keep money for their daughter's wedding. My father gave me the check and said, "This is the money that I had, kept for you for your wedding," because he realized that this daughter is not getting married the way he wanted. And me and Egnano had saved money to, buy. So 2 3 years before we actually got married, when we realized that we were serious, so we had bought a house for us almost a year before we got married. So that just helped. And by the time we got married and we were all of 26, 27, and we had a house, one bedroom, small house in Malad, but we had an independent house. And all that, so it worked beautifully. So we are now married for a long time.
so how many children now? Two?
I have two sons. I have two sons. One of them didn't go very far from where two of us are, has joined advertising. So far was in law, has just quit because he wants to go to one of the film schools and he needs to write a script, to get admission in this. And the submission is in November kind. So he decided these 2 months, if I don't submit, then I won't be able to get into any of the film schools. So the elder one is just quit. The younger one is, totally away from advertising. Wants to be into finance and is on his way now to UK to study post graduation in finance.
That's interesting. And at least somebody has followed in your footsteps, somewhere close to you. Yeah.
Different investments, but thankfully in things which
But it's a good
is not
combination.
as tough.
Good combination to have finance and creativity. That's
Yeah.
that's a deadly combo. Uh, I'm moving away a bit, and you have been one of the pioneers in, or the pioneer, I could say, to a large extent, at least in our industry, to start this whole business of work before even work from home started, flexi working hours. And what was your thought? How did that all start? Because then through the IAA, you launched a campaign and things like that, right? If I remember. So how did all that start?
So, Raj, we all stay in Mumbai, and there are a lot of things that happen around us, and I think many times we just ignore it and walk away because you're busy running around your own things, so to speak. Unfortunately, I had two incidences back to back virtually up, and these was mishaps because of the suburban railway network that we have. So my elder brother, one day, because of an infrastructure problem in on the railway station, he hurt himself and died. And Teresa, who was my executive, so just a couple of months later, the September stampede that happened in Elphinstone Road, where those 23 people died. One of them was Teresa, who was my executive assistant. So I hadn't come out of the brother's story, and this happened. So then I started thinking a lot of how people travel, how the kind of deaths that were happening. And then I realized that almost 9 to 10 deaths happen per day in Mumbai by just the railway tracks, and that was terrible. I mean, imagine 3,400 people dying every year, and that's more than people in Kashmir. So, and nobody noticing it. It was just such a normal thing for everyone that, newspapers were not reporting it because they just thought, that's the every day they die. So, how does it, what difference does it make? And so 23 people who died during the Elphinstone thing, it's worth reporting, but 10 people every day, unka kya, every day to put a face in newspaper. And I just couldn't digest that, because that was as, callous, inhuman as anything that we can go through. And we had just taken it in our stride as if, and then we keep talking of Mumbai being resilient, and Mumbai, we get back to things without, batting an eyelid. So to me, that just didn't make sense. So at that same time, I was talking to Ramesh. I'm part of the Indian International Advertising Association, and we were talking to Ramesh. And one day, Ramesh, in fact, I called him up at 8:30 in the night and said, Ramesh, this is what I would like to do. We cannot solve. And by then, I had run 6 months going to, the offices of the railway, trying to figure out if there's way, trying to fix the other thing. Because before my brother, there have been at least 50 people who died at the same spot, and nothing has happened. And everybody just, he says, malum hai, hota hai, par kya kare, madam, that kind of answers, all random answers. And they shift so quickly from that post that each one just assumes that who's going to take this Dadar station problem into they just stay there and they go away. And they're all right doing this. So 6 months before that, I was running around. Then I, thought maybe, because being in media, being a CEO, by then I was the CEO of the company, and this is what I should use my, so to say, ability, connections or power or whatever you call it, to make a difference. So 2.5 years back, I decided that this is, I would start an initiative called Work to Live to Work. That whole initiative was how to decongest rush hour, so that we know we can't change the railway system, or they will do what they have to do for now 4-5 years before this underground starts. But in the meanwhile, it just didn't make sense that another 3,000 people will die. So then I started talking of decongesting the rush hour. And so, as a starting point, I walked up to the Times group, and I knew Jojo, who's the editor of Times. I spoke to the Economic Times, and they quickly came on board. They totally believed in the cause. And after I put the first set of ads in, I think just everybody in media and everybody in Mumbai just identified and understood the need for flexi hours, and that how that would help us save time. So before that, a lot of companies had flexi hours, but they were all bits and pieces where somebody would say, okay, you're pregnant and you cannot come at the at the 9:30 hour, so it's okay, we'll give you some time and you can come at 11 o'clock, 11:30. But not as a collaborative effort to decongest rush hour. So that's what I started. Then once I started the whole advertising and awareness part of it, then I started talking to companies, and I've gone to at least hundreds of companies, all the big ones, the Tata, Mahindra, Birla, all of them, personally gone, presented, saying this is the need of this is the kind of deaths that are happening. This is what we need to do to change. Let's look at how your staff comes in. And the unfortunate part is the CEOs of the company come in car. The staff that comes in by railway are not the staff which the CEO see on a regular basis. So it's not something that they know that the staff is hurting also. So there are rules and policies of 9:15, 9:30. If you don't come, we'll mark 3 late marks and your salary will get cut off because that day all like these policies. And I work with people trying to get change policies. The good part of it is, last year year end, when we saw the number of deaths, we had only 417 deaths. So that's 3,000 deaths less, which is an amazing. And I may not say it has anything to do with me, but somebody's woken up and we just created enough noise for someone to start looking at some structures, and you can see now a lot of infrastructure at the platform, the road, the way people come down, they're forming lines. A lot of changes have come through. The COVID is not helping me. So now I've started a whole COVID related communication on time distancing, which is an alternate word for flexi time, and say, if you all go back in that same train, that 400 which we've come down to will go up to not 3,000, but probably 6,000. So now this is the current effort that I'm putting in.
Nandini, I'm really sorry about your brother and your executive assistant. I mean, that's a sad story, but the good thing is that you're doing something about it and you're trying to bring about a change. And I think, hats off to you for what you have done. We are running out of time. I wish I could go on continuing this conversation with you. Before I end, I want only one question and we'll have to keep it short. Where do you see advertising going in the next 6 months? Because everybody, I think, wants to see how the economy is reviving and what's happening. What is the trend? What is the trend according to you? What do you think will happen?
So the good news is IPL is 100% sold out. So so at least it tells me that this quarter may be better than what we were imagining. So advertising started and things are looking up, and this. What I worry about is that the inflation is really high, and so that will catch up with us, and the quarter after that is going to be far tougher than the current quarter, and so it's going to take time, but I'm hopeful. And like you said, there are things which we may come out of this at the other end. Some positives will come out of it, and I think the way we work. So my struggle on work to live to work was a certain kind, but there's a terrible way of things happening. But I think at the other end we may manage to do some bit of decongesting, but I'm hoping so it'll take us time, but we'll get there. It'll be good.
Thank you, Nandini. Thank you so much, and all the good work you're doing, especially in terms of your concern for people traveling by train and flexi hours and things like that. Whatever support I can give you personally, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I wish you all the very best. Thank you for coming. And I can see Bhaskar Das saying, "Hey, nice to hear both Nandini and you speaking. I should have seen this chart before." There are many other fans of yours who are there. Thank you so much, and it was wonderful speaking to you.
Thank you so much, Raj, and it was wonderful talking to you too. And I realized that we are same similar like the 5 years, 5 kids, both of us are. Yeah, thank you.
Over a drink, we'll have a longer chat. See you.
Yes, thank you. Bye bye.